share my screen tight while I get this shared. I brought one of my leaders in my office with me because I was like, look here, it's challenging to do this without an audience. So I've got a live studio audience here with me. I wanted to, first off, before I jump right into properly logging leads and tasks, I wanted to try to email myself an image, but was not able to properly pull it up on my email. So I'm going to announce I'm a grandma now. My stepdaughter had her first child Saturday, baby Gwendolyn Pearl. So I know this is not part of the training, but hey, we're all one big happy family in this here agency. So let me just show you my little grandbaby here. I don't know if you guys can see this with my filter or not, but she's got a head full of hair. So that's baby Gwen. All right, so now we jump into properly logging leads and tasks. Originally, when I did this training, I went very fast and furious, but I want to start with some recap of what has been trained and put in front of the entire agency with Dara and Tara's trainings as well. Something to recap is always knowing your lead types. Having that SOP, the standard operating procedures within our training books is super valuable. And so something that I and my leadership team are really trying to put in front of the newest of the new agents is to know how to disposition leads. Is it a warm? Is it a hot follow-up scheduled appointment and things of that nature? So don't feel the need to really read over every one of these definitions as they should all be in your training books. And you should be very, very aware of them. But I want to impress upon you the value in asking your newest agent, hey, how are we going to disposition that lead? And if they don't know, hey, let's open up that page in your training workbook so that you know how to run your own business. So always kind of putting that in front of your agents, teaching them how to manage their pipeline by knowing how to disposition their leads so they know where to go next for that next opportunity to close a case and write premium to write their own paycheck. Okay. Properly logging best practices. The newest of the new, oh, I'm going to get to it. Oh, I'm going to do it. Stop, slow down, show them in real time to log every walk-in immediately, because conversations will be missed. You'll forget little details that your newest of your new agents, they don't realize the value in knowing adjectives to describe the gatekeepers, or kind of maybe jotting down names of employees that you're starting to build rapport with, because all that rapport building that you're doing is going to help you once you have that solidified closed case to then write that account. Okay. Notes must be, my GA here is helping me. Notes must be detailed. And then knowing why that you come back in, when you come back in, setting yourself up for success, why you should position yourself in a position to win, right? I'm always telling my agents, hey, set appointments. Set appointments, I'll go in and close them for you. Set appointments, I'll go in and show that so I can make myself duplicatable into the next. And I'm training up my leadership team to do the exact same thing, right? You always want to be having that forward momentum in your thought process as you grow in this business. And I tell everybody all the time, the AD that I am today is not the agent that I was 4 years ago, right? I started this business 4 years ago, January, and through critical thinking and making myself memorable and knowing how to position myself in a position to win is how I launched my career and found success so early on, right? So knowing when is the bad days tells me when the good days are to come in and meet with the DM. Knowing what they do or don't drive helps me manage my time wisely, because time is money, y'all. Okay. And then making sure that you're updating your lead statuses matters. All right. Good logging supports expansion of your own business, right? Especially as you're duplicating yourself in others and transferring that skill set. All right. So when you're building routes, a 50-50 mix of new and follow-up. Brian says it all the time. We always have to be putting new seed in the ground. And you all know, as you've been doing this business, sometimes timing matters, right? Oh, we got a lot going on. We're dealing with an acquisition. We got this or that or whatever going on, but come back and see me in 2 months. So I need to put something back into that route, because we're in the follow-up business, right? should expect to walk into a business 5 to 8 times before you get any forward momentum, right? So if you have some accounts or some leads that are saying, I misspoke, not accounts, you have some leads that are saying, come back and see me in 2 months. Okay, I know what month to come back into. So that may be, if they have interest, a warm lead, right? So I need to put new seed in that route to take that place of the one I'm going to come back to in 2 months, which is why you do want to build a route with a 50-50 mix. Okay. Your scheduled follow-ups and your appointments, those are your boulders. Those are locked in. I always tell my team that your enrollments and your appointments, those are your boulders, and the route is the river that flows around your boulders. We do not miss appointments. We do not miss enrollments. Sometimes DMs, if it was not properly set up to enroll, may have missed you, may have forgotten you, right? But you finesse that and you make it work, right? Because you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And if you don't write your own paycheck, who will, right? So intentionally scheduling your time increases the access to seeing DMs on your routes, all right? Consistency of your leads ultimately will lead you to the results that, good Lord willing, we are all after, okay? So this one, I mentioned this when I did this previously, but satisfying the task of a scheduled appointment is really hard for me to get through my thick skull. I mean, I'm sure Bruce had to be like, okay, Christina, why is it not that? Why is it not that? I'm sure I can kind of remember back a couple of weeks back when Bruce intentionally poured into me and 2 of my essays. And this one was challenging for me to understand because we had a scheduled appointment. My agent, now SA, Leanna, and I went in, we did a presentation. We have a follow-up to get signed paperwork. And so I'm like, okay, we got an appointment. And Bruce was like, well, let's call that a scheduled follow-up. And it was really hard for me to understand. And now that I do, I want to impress upon you the importance of recognizing when you look at dashboards, you can only convert your DM once. So if you have taken that DM, for example, let's say my GA Cora is a DM, right? And for example, if we take that DM and we've converted that DM to allow me to present on the spot, I need to jump around here, Cora, sorry, forgive me. For example, we jump around and this DM has now been converted for a DM conversion here, and I do a presentation, I know I'm coming back in a week or later that same week, or heck, on this particular instance, we're coming back in Wednesday of this week to get that signed paperwork because the father who's handing over the business to the daughter was out of pocket, I believe was in France or something of that nature. That's why there's a little bit lag time. But we're going in Wednesday to get signed paperwork. Well, I've already converted said DM. So if I schedule another appointment, it's going to inflate my DM conversion numbers. And for me personally, that was really an aha moment. I was like, oh, I get it. So while yes, I do have an appointment for my dashboard purposes so that I can accurately reflect what's actually taking place, I'm going to call it a scheduled follow-up. Scheduled follow-ups still allow me to give a day and a time, but rather than clicking appointment set again, it will show this inflated conversion, which is why we don't want to do that. Okay. So that aha moment was super valuable to me. So that's why I wanted to hit on that. Okay. So the way in which we take said appointment that Leanna and I did 2 weeks ago and satisfy that task is we do not log a walk-in. Okay. When you are going into the appointments already set, I don't want you to just click worksite walk-in like you typically do every other time it's a brand new walk-in or it's just a follow-up, right? In this instance, I need you instead, do not click the box. I want you to view record. And we're going to edit. Oh, it didn't change. We opened up the wrong one. In this box right here, this is the box I do not want you to click. Please do not click this box. All right. Instead, just above it, that edit. I would prefer you to click on edit because we're satisfying a task that has already been previously made in Epic. Once we've done all the details in satisfying that task, Epic will then click that box for me when I save it. Okay. So again, click view record when you're at your appointment And by the way, I need to give props to my soon to be GA. She's promoting tomorrow. I'm giving her a shout out there because she also helped build this presentation. So shout out to Cora and all my leadership team for being so much more tech savvy than me. But when you're in your appointment, view record, click edit. Do not click the box. Super valuable. Okay. Now, you do want to log what actually transpired at said appointment. Okay. In doing so, you're going to go down here to appointment task. So scroll on down. Click what transpired. We spoke with the gatekeeper who happened to also be the DM team. Super important. If you speak to a human being, I do not care if it is the founder and owner of the business, please, please, please click 20% because said DM can also be the gatekeeper. This is vitally important to your business because if you do not click 20% gatekeeper, whether it's 20% gatekeeper or 20% trainer assisted, Epic does not log your numbers. So if you skip that small, minute step and you jump straight ahead to 40% because you're with the decision maker, all that hard work is not going to be reflected in your dashboards. So again, team, vitally important that you click the 20% when you're speaking to a human being, okay? Excuse me. So if you go out, you're running your route, the door is locked, you can't get any traction, you're not speaking to a human being, you can log what transpired if maybe their business has moved, excuse me, or their hours of operations are a little bit wonky. They're closed on Wednesdays for some odd reason, whatever the case may be. So yes, you can log vital research or vital information found when out in the field. But if you do not speak to a human being, please do not click 20%. And then on the same token, if you do speak to a human being, please do click 20%, okay? Notice, since this was a already scheduled appointment here, we've clicked 20% gatekeeper, 20% decision maker. We skipped over the 60% because we already have converted, all right? Then I actually did the presentation in this transaction with Leanna at the time, okay? Now, make sure you click completed. All right. That is when that box that I mentioned earlier that Epic is going to do for you will populate. It's when you mark that this task has fully been completed. It will automatically populate that and click that box for you. All right. So then consider what's the follow-up. For us in this particular scenario, we're going back in Wednesday. So for us, it was a scheduled follow-up because we have an actual date and time to go back in. So in my mind, it was really hard for me to grasp that it wasn't another appointment. So that's really what I'm trying to impress upon you because we completed that task and now we're setting up a new step in our leads layer to best figure out where our money is coming from, where that next closed case is at. Okay. So walk-ins versus tasks. What's the difference? Walk-ins are when you do not have a scheduled appointment or you do not have a scheduled follow-up because scheduled appointments and scheduled follow-ups are tasks that must be satisfied. Okay. A walk-in is just an unscheduled visit. That's what we do daily when we're running field, right, team? Right? No specific time, no commitment from the DM to meet with us, right? You have to log your walk-ins with very specific detailed notes. Like I jokingly say, that's my digital filing cabinet because it makes me look like a genius because I'm not going to remember what I said and did to 100 different decision makers or businesses that I'm walking in and out of week to week, right? Outcome of the visit. And then this next step is how are you transferring the skill of dispositioning leads to your newest and the new, okay? Tasks, again, are scheduled appointment or scheduled follow-ups because they're time-bound commitments. Y'all, in this business, we are in the follow-up business. And I cannot impress upon you to be a woman of your word or a man of your word. Because sometimes the DM is just testing you to see if you're going to do what you said you're going to do. So again, if you have a commitment, show up for your commitment. If, the sky is falling and you've got walking pneumonia, communicate that with your leadership so your leadership can show up for you. Because again, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, right? Because trust me, it's happened to me personally, to where I jokingly said to the DM, I know you were just testing me. And then I got like a little grin, like a little smug smile. I knew they were just making me jump through hoops to see if I would show up like I said I would. And I ultimately closed that case since a plumbing company is still in the books. Okay. So on both walk-ins and scheduled tasks, please, please, please give yourself clear, detailed notes to set yourself up for success, right? That's how you win in this business, right? Having goals that you set for yourself and then achieving what you are creating for yourself to do. That's how you win your day. And that's what I impress upon my team all the time. So like these commitments, like what's your committed walk-ins? We put it out on the 10 block. What's your committed walk-ins prior to lunch? Then you don't go eat until you hit your committed walk-ins. Period. Seems easy, right? So just do it. Because ultimately in this business, we're results driven, performance paid. Now, of course, if you get 2 closed cases like my other GA did last week and didn't quite hit your commits, I'm okay with that, because then you're always battling the quality over quantity. But what are you doing to own your career and to truly make this opportunity of a lifetime a career for yourself, and not just for yourself, but for your family, right? So correctly logging a previously scheduled appointment, i.e. a task. Why don't we reselect appointment? I told you all of this. I spoke before my points here on my presentation, but we don't reselect appointments simply because of the conversion on dashboards, okay? Because it's not going to give you accurate dashboards, and dashboards are trackable for your leadership team to help you grow in this industry. That first area of opportunity, of course, is where you're bleeding red or where you're on the cusp of turning from yellow to red. And if we inflate those conversions, it makes it more and more challenging for your leadership team to help you get walk-ins under 100 per week. Okay. Because ultimately, this is where your paycheck can be made week in and week out, because doing all the things, following our system to success. I just was talking to my leadership team about this morning. The AP will come, but the AP is a byproduct of following our system to success. So when you get your dashboards to look like something of this nature, to where you're less than 100 walk-ins to close case, and when you strive to a presentation daily, then you should ultimately average out a closed case weekly. Okay. Now, averages average out, right? So if I did 4 presentations this one week, but all of a sudden I didn't close a case, but then I'm still striving for those 4 presentations next week. And at the end of next week, I've got 8 presentations that I've gotten into, maybe even 7. Odds are I may end my second week with 2 closed cases, because numbers don't lie and averages do average out. It's about 3 presentations to a closed cases, I believe, where my team's averaging. So again, if we got into 7 presentations in 2 weeks, by the end of 2 weeks, we should have 2 closed cases. So that's knowing your numbers helps you to know what to strive for. And early on in an agent's career, they may not yet know their numbers, which is why knowing the agency's numbers helpful, because then they can see, am I working above average? Am I working below average? Where am I at in taking a hold of this opportunity to truly turn it into that career that I'm after, right? So hopefully this is not new information to you in regards to looking at dashboards. When I look at dashboards, I look right to left. So in this particular scenario, my first opportunity for improvement, my first stop would be looking at DMs met. How can I better position myself to win, right? So that's what I always want to be talking to my leadership team about, so that they can also transfer that skill and talk to their teams about, right? So dispositioning leads properly after completing the task looks like such. So in regard to that presentation that Leanna and I did, that we had to then schedule that scheduled follow-up, this is what that looks like. Once we've completed the task at hand, which was already a scheduled appointment, logged all my information. Then I'm going to go back in and set up a future follow-up task, right? Because you see here the calendars all outlined in red for future appointment or follow-up task. Collect the date that you're going to be back and then mark done. Okay. So make sure you click the set activity drop-down menu to select follow-up, and then under appointment and follow-up, set the due date of when you'll be back and click done. Always remember to save. And y'all, I can't tell you this often enough. I tell it to my team all the time, but everybody could really use this reminder. Sometimes Epic glitches. Sometimes we're running a route in an area that we have low connectivity. It's a struggle. I get it. Exhaust what you can to set yourself up to win, right? But you always have to be solution minded. Oh man, I got one bar. What am I going to do? Go old school, write it down paper, pencil. And the way I kind of put this in front of my people is, imagine if you didn't have Epic. Thank God for Epic, because could you imagine having a worksheet that you had to staple a business card to, write down all of your notes, bring back to the office, organize into a binder, and then that one, maybe 1.5 day you're all together in the office, create your own route of the businesses that you're going to go to, pull out the different sheets of paper with all of your written notes that hopefully didn't get rained on. Could you imagine doing it old school? Now, I'm not the most technologically savvy AD in our agency, but I couldn't imagine running my business that way. So just something for you to keep in mind when you're like, oh man, I got to do something different. Oh man, Epic sucks. Oh man, Epic's not working. Perspective, right? Mindset. Figure out a way to make it work for you. Now, with all that being said, I know I track numbers on a regular basis. So don't mishear me and think, oh, well, Christina said I could write it all down. No, if it's not an Epic, it didn't happen. So I'm simply giving you an option. If you're running an area where you have very poor service, you still do need to log the information into Epic when you're back home or when you're back in an area that has better connectivity, because we track your commits day in and day out. So don't wait until the next day or 3 days later, because again, you may miss minor details that you think are no big deal, but truly could be the difference in you closing that case or not, because you remembered about her daughter's braces or something of that nature, right? So I'm just giving you a solution because it occurred to me that sometimes Epic does glitch. And so rather than focusing on the negative and focusing on, man, this stinks and this it's not working, blah, 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 blah. Let's be solution oriented and think about a workaround. I'm like the queen of figuring it out. We're flying this plane while we're building it, y'all. And so the more people we can cast vision on and get people on board and want to grow this thing with us, the better we'll all be as an agency. Okay. So just a little side note on that. That wasn't part of my training, but I think it's valuable. So again, don't forget to save. That's where it came from, because I know Epic sometimes doesn't save. So check your dashboards regularly. And this goes to everybody, agents, SAs, GAs, and ADs. You should be checking dashboards a minimum of 3 times a day. Now, don't check it every 5 minutes. That's insane. But check it between 9 and 9:30 to make sure everyone's off to the races, right? And so you know to check in with people. But then if you know your connectivity is kind of trashy or you don't have the best connection, whatever, check it every once and again to make sure that what you're doing, your hard work and your effort is actually being saved. Because I can't tell you how many times I'm like, myself included, I'm like, dang it, I know I did this, but if I don't have connection, it may not have saved. So that's why I'm just putting it in front of you. Not only if you're in leadership, should you be checking dashboards, but if you're in it to win as an agent early on in your career, check dashboards. Because I personally couldn't remember every single walk-in, and it motivated me. If I, again, with my commits, right? If I'm committed to walking into 15 businesses before lunch and I check dashboards and I'm at 11, well, I'm walking into 4 more before I go to lunch. So that kind of motivated me and kept me going. So it's just something else for you to think about from the agent body all the way up, okay? After completing the task, as I mentioned, it's going to, Epic will give you this check mark. You do not need to check the box, okay? So again, you edit the lead that's saved, go into follow-up status, click the drop down, and that's where you're going to get what type of disposition it is. Okay. So however you're disposition your lead, whether it's a warm follow-up, hot follow-up, make sure you save it. Okay. So again, here's your disposition of how leads should be. Follow-ups. Been in the business before, but you did not meet the decision maker. You don't really know if they have interest or not. Of course, they all have interest because, I mean, everybody has interest in what we offer, right? In my mind, it's a win-win. Doesn't cost you anything. I'm going to work for you for free kind of mentality, right? So everything that you've been into and you haven't yet met the DM, that's follow-up. Hot lead means you're returning within 2 weeks due to specific interest. Business gave you a specific month to follow up would be considered a warm lead. And then a scheduled follow-up and appointment is confirmed day and time with the DM. Okay. With a scheduled follow-up, you may or may not have met the DM. So those of y'all who are getting appointments set through the gatekeeper, that's not a true appointment. That's a scheduled follow-up. Only if you confirm date and time with the DM is it actually an appointment. Okay. So in summary, I believe I've mentioned all of this, but I'm just putting it out there. I believe this will be posted on our YouTube video agency training so that you can review it at your leisure. But I guess I should open it up for questions. So.
All right, Christina, thank you so much for once again sharing with us how to be effective in logging activity from a task. I think as all you all remember, back when I showed you the dashboards, we were looking at the total number of presentations that were given, and it showed that about 99.9% of presentations that were given came from an on the spot. Right now, here's what we're trying to fix, right? We want to be able to help you as much as we can be able to stay on top of those scheduled opportunities that might have rescheduled, might have canceled, right? Or overall, something happened in the mix, right? Because I can tell you all that you all work day in and day out to get those conversions to happen. But imagine if you had a leader that was able to remind you, hey, you had 3 appointments last week that did not run. What is your plan going into this next week to keep them on the process, right? Keep them moving in the sales process, so to speak. So that's one thing, right? The other thing I wanted to mention, I think Christina did a great job of mentioning it, but I wanted to remind you, you must add the task from the layer. So for those appointments that are showing up that you've got scheduled, make sure that you're adding them to your route from your layers within Epic, because then that creates the opportunity to go in and do everything that Christina covered. Okay. Now, the other thing is just make sure that when you're going in and using the layers, that you're updating the tasks, right? Which is, let's say you had an appointment that didn't show, okay? You wouldn't log any percentages, or let's say you talked to the gatekeeper, but the DM wasn't there because they had something come up. You would still edit the task, but then you would schedule a future follow-up, aka scheduled follow-up, to go back in and get back in front of that decision maker. Right? And you could utilize the 4-week forecast, which again, we're getting ready to talk about that in the coming, or actually next week. So you don't want to miss it. So once again, guys, thank you so much, Christina. Thank you all for tuning in. And we're excited to see you all again soon on these trainings. So thank you. You guys have a great rest of your Monday.